Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Cheap Meal presented by Deep Fried Draft. My name is Brian Bosarge. As we always do this week, this time we're going to talk about the games I watched this past weekend and we're going to preview the games for the upcoming weekend. We've also got some NFL trades and trade rumors to talk about, as well as a coach firing in college football. We're going to start with Miami and Virginia Tech from last Thursday. And I continue to be impressed with the explosiveness of Virginia Tech redshirt sophomore running back Travion McMillan. I don't expect him to enter this year's draft, but a name to monitor going forward. Bucky Hodges had a tremendous night catching the ball. He boxes out defensive backs so well. Said, is he a tight end? Is he a receiver? Probably depends on the team that drafts him. Miami junior quarterback Brad Kaya has struggled the last 3 weeks to the point that he should probably consider staying another year at Miami because I don't think he's ready for the NFL. Friday night was South Florida and Temple, and Temple senior running back Jahad Thomas was impressive in this game, but he was outshined by his teammate, number 25, true sophomore running back Raquel Armstead. Armstead's the name to file away for the 2018 draft. In a late edition, added San Jose State and San Diego State, and I was very disappointed to see only 2 targets and 0 catches for San Jose State senior tight end Billy Freeman. He's a guy I like, but probably not a guy that's going to get much run in the draft process as we move forward. Donnell Pumphrey added another 125 yards on the ground and has a real shot, if everything goes as planned, to finish this season as the all-time leading rusher in FBS history. Saturday morning, UMass and South Carolina, and it was good to see South Carolina actually score some points this week. But it's still a bit disconcerting to see them not be able to put away UMass. As far as draft prospects go, not a whole lot stood out in this one. NC State and Louisville blew this open early, never looked back. Number 18 for Louisville, senior tight end Cole Hicatini, has emerged as a big playmaking target for quarterback Lamar Jackson. Had 118 yards, 6 receptions, and a touchdown in this one. Another name for this year's draft, probably a mid 4th, 5th round guy for a team looking for a pass-catching tight end. Central Florida and UConn was a pretty boring game to watch, to be honest. But that tends to happen when the best prospects that you're watching in the game are all offensive linemen. UCF came back in this game and scored a touchdown late to get the win. Another late addition for me this week was Lafayette and Bucknell. It was my first chance to watch Bucknell's senior offensive tackle, number 78, Julian Davenport. Davenport's 6'7", 315, has tremendous size and power. He's got vines for arms. He can pull when called upon, dominates his level of competition. I really hope to see him at the Senior Bowl to get a better feel of, is he an NFL prospect, is he not? Texas A&M and Alabama was another week of more Alabama dominance. Game was close for the first 35 minutes or so, but it went away for the Aggies really quick after that. If you haven't seen the Alabama senior defensive end Jonathan Allen's Superman-esque sack, as soon as you're finished watching this video, probably look that one up. It's a sight to see. Bad news for Alabama in this game was a senior defensive safety punt returner extraordinaire Eddie Jackson broke his leg, probably going to miss the rest of the season. Jackson was, at this point, a borderline top 100 guy. And depending on how quickly he heals and rehabs, he may or may not be able to run at the combine or his pro day. And if he can or can't, that's probably not a good sign of where he'll be drafted. It was also good to see Alabama get senior tight end O.J. Howard involved in the offense again. He had eight catches on the day, only 69 yards, but 1 touchdown. TCU and West Virginia was another good game this week for a guy we talked about last week, West Virginia senior wide receiver number 6, DeKale Shorts. He had 4 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Continues to show off his vacuum cleaner style hands. And when I say that, I mean the ball gets near him, his hands just suck it up like a vacuum cleaner. The West Virginia defense is legit. Last week shut down Texas Tech on the road. This week TCU came in averaging 40-plus points a game. Only gets 10 in this one. Next week they play at Oklahoma State, and that will be a test for West Virginia. Middle Tennessee and Missouri, wild shootout game won by Middle Tennessee. Congrats to Coach Tyrone Nix and the rest of the staff at MTSU on their win on the road at an SEC school. Jeremy Cutler, the senior corner for the Blue Raiders, came as advertised, and as a matter of fact, Missouri rarely challenged him at all during this game. Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn set an SEC record for most rushing yards in a game. That's very impressive. Equally impressive was Auburn's front 7 as they dominated the Hogs' offensive line from bell to bell. Last week we talked a little bit about Carl Lawson, but senior defensive tackle number 1, Montravius Adams, was also dominant in this game. He's a guy who is solidly in the mid to lower second round area. If he continues to improve, maybe at the rest of the season in an all-star game atmosphere, you could see him in the late first round area. For Arkansas, senior wide receiver number 4, Keon Hatcher. He caught my eye last week against Alabama, and he was pretty much the lone bright spot in this game for the Hogs. He's got excellent hands, runs great routes, and he's got decent speed. So a mid-round receiver target there with Keon Hatcher. Montana and Northern Arizona. Watch this one for Montana senior quarterback Brady Gustafson. He had a high amount of yards, but was wildly inaccurate. He was especially inaccurate throwing the ball downfield. People will want to compare him to Carson Wentz, but really the only similarities between the two are they're tall and they played at FCS schools. Other than that, there's really no comparison. Gustafson, to me, is probably a mid to late round project quarterback. Has the tools, but he's not ready to go. Not ready for prime time. Tennessee State and Vandy. This was basically a game to get acquainted with the one prospect I had on my radar for Tennessee State was senior Jessamine Dunker. He's got raw power and he has movement skills. He plays left tackle for the Tigers, but his style of play tells me he's probably better suited inside at the next level. A couple other players for Tennessee State caught my eye. Senior quarterback number 10, Ronald Butler, showed off a nice arm with downfield accuracy, made a load of plays with his legs. He is 6'3", but only 180 pounds. He threw for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. He hasn't started full-time at Tennessee State, so that is a concern. But he, to me, has moldable skills. He's not a guy that's going to get drafted at all. I mean, there's no chance. I say that, but I don't believe that he'll be drafted. Is he a guy that gets in a camp and maybe sticks on a practice squad? Absolutely. Another player was junior wide receiver number 17 for Tennessee State, Patrick Smith. He was the main target for Butler, showed nice hands with plus speed. He had 7 catches, 170, and 2 touchdowns. Like I said, I would say that both of these guys are sleeper types, undrafted free agents in their respective draft classes. So that'll do it for last week's games. On to some college football news. Fresno State fired head coach Tim DeRuyter. You could probably see this coming, as I think I said a few weeks ago. Fresno State has 0 players on my watch list, which is crazy considering the success they've had in recent years. With putting guys in the NFL. But like I said, there's just the talent level is falling off there, and that generally lands squarely on the shoulders of the head coach. I would expect them to look for a power conference coach retread, possibly. Look for your names like Alabama quality control coach, offensive assistant Steve Sarkisian, who was fired from Southern Cal last year. I would even say there's a possibility that Lane Kiffin would be a guy that could get called about the job, although I don't know if he would take a job at a group of 5 school. I've also heard that the name Jeff Tedford, the former Cal coach, is a name that might get some run. So Fresno State's a good job. It's a good traditional football program for a group of 5 school, and I would expect them to get a guy that can help them out. All right, 11 games on the docket this week. We'll start on Thursday. 3 games we're going to cut on, or watch on Thursday night. 6 p.m. on ESPN, Virginia Tech at Pittsburgh. And I found that I had not watched Pittsburgh this year. And for a school with at least 5 or 6 draftable prospects, that's an oversight on my part. So look for us to probably get some Pitt tape over these next few weeks. But everyone loves to talk about their running back, James Conner, and rightfully so. Conner is a cancer survivor and is a very solid running back prospect. But their top prospect may end up being senior offensive tackle number 69, Adam Bisnwati. He's a 6'6", 300. With the dearth of offensive tackle prospects in this draft, Bisnwati has a chance to elevate his draft stock. (6:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network). Ohio University at Toledo. First look for both teams this season as we start #Maction off early week games in the MAC from here on out, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is a great chance to check out the prospects for those schools because they don't get lost in the gluttony of games that are on Saturdays. For Toledo, their top prospect is easily senior running back number 3, Kareem Hunt. Tremendous back that currently carries a mid-round grade for me. For Ohio, look for a deep sleeper and senior wide receiver number 6, Sebastian Smith, has great size, 6'3", 207. 9:30 p.m. on ESPN, Cal at Southern Cal. And we're just checking in on Cal senior quarterback Davis Webb since we last saw him like in week 2. I think quarterback hungry teams really want to see him continue to improve as, like I said, the outside of maybe Deshaun Watson, I'm not sure who the next quarterback picked will be. A lot of people point to Deshaun Kaiser, maybe even Brad Kaya if he was to come out. But both those guys probably better off going back to school. Like I said, I don't see Luke Falk coming out early. I don't see Mason Rudolph coming out early. So at this point, there's a race to see who the top senior quarterback is going to be, and it ain't good. So Davis Webb has a chance to really put his name there in that spot. So let's go to Saturday now, 11 a.m., reverse mirrored on ABC and ESPN. That should probably be ESPN2. Louisville at Virginia. We know about Louisville. We've seen them play quite a few times this season, but I really want to see a few more games of Virginia. And I really want to see a good game from their scat back number 4, Taquan Mizell. Mizell came into Virginia as a very highly touted prospect. He may have been 5. I can't remember if he was a five-star guy, but he's a guy who could be that third down change of pace back at the NFL level. 2:30 p.m. on CBS, Florida versus Georgia. This is the annual world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. Georgia needs a win just to have a positive this season. Florida needs it for a chance to play in the SEC championship game. In this game, you'll want to look for Florida senior linebacker Jared Davis and see how he handles the Georgia junior running backs Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel. 2:30 p.m. on Root Sports Northwest. Montana at Eastern Washington. There's one more shot at Gustafson here, plus a closer look at Eastern Washington senior wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Highly productive. excuse me, great route runner. Chance to see him. 2:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1 is Washington at Utah. And it's going to be a big test for Washington and their college football playoff hopes. Utah is going to need a pass rush from senior defensive end number 49 Hunter Dimick, 6'3", 270, and junior defensive tackle number 93 Lowell Lotelele to try to slow down Washington's offensive attack. 6 p.m. on the American Sports Network. Marshall at Southern Miss. It's our first look at Marshall on the year and their top prospect, which is senior offensive tackle number 78 Clint Van Horn. 6:15 on ESPN2, Tennessee at South Carolina. Tennessee is going to be without junior running back Alvin Kamara. Not that it's really going to matter. Look for junior defensive end Derek Barnett to should have a big game. For South Carolina, I want to see the continued improvement of junior cornerbacks Jamarcus King and junior cornerback Chris Lamont. 7 p.m. on ABC, Clemson at Florida State. It's the biggest game of the day and likely Clemson's last chance to lose in the regular season before the college football playoff. For Clemson, potential number 1 draft pick, junior quarterback Deshaun Watson will have to navigate Florida State's pass rush. For Florida State, they need a big game from a top five player on our board, junior running back Dalvin Cook. 9:45 p.m. on ESPN2, Washington State at Oregon State, and somebody needs to put out an APB for Oregon State junior wide receiver Jordan Villeman. He's had nowhere near the production that any or most people anticipated he would have this season. I'm anxious to see what that issue is. So that's all the games we're going to watch this week. Now let's get to some NFL news. First, we're going to talk about some trade rumors that have pretty much been shot down at this point in time, but since there's smoke, we might as well talk about them. There's rumors that Cleveland is shopping perennial All-Pro offensive tackle Joe Thomas. Hugh Jackson said in his press conference flat out that they're not trading Joe Thomas. So we'll see. I don't know what Cleveland really has to gain from that at this point. I mean, how many damn draft picks do you need? I mean, seriously. There's also a rumor that San Francisco could be trading offensive tackle Joe Staley. Although Chip Kelly has pretty much denied that one as well. Also a rumor that San Francisco is shopping wide receiver Torrey Smith. That one, I believe, may has a chance to happen. Also, Benjamin Albright has reported that Alshon Jeffrey may be on the trade block as well with a potential suitor in Philadelphia. That would, of course, be contingent on a contract extension for Jeffrey. For Alshon's sake, I really hope he is traded because that's just sad what's happening to him this year in Chicago with that mess. There were actually 2 legit trades today. The Lions finally abandoned hope for former second-round pick outside linebacker Kyle Van Noy. They traded him and a 7th-round pick in this year's draft to New England for a 6th-round pick in this year's draft. What this essentially adds up to, if you think New England's going to finish with a very good record, which what indication would you have that they wouldn't? Then basically you're trading Kyle Van Noy to move up maybe 10 to 15 spots in a round. Denver traded a 5th-round pick in this year's draft to New England for tight end A.J. Derby. Derby is a former quarterback at Arkansas that converted to tight end. What is fun about this trade is New England traded a 4th-round pick to Chicago to acquire Martellus Bennett, who is pretty great, and essentially just got a 5th-round pick back. So that is a great example, as someone said on Twitter today, of why they're winning. because they know how to scam the system. The NFL trade deadline is Tuesday, November 1st. So any of these rumors, if they're going to happen, they're going to happen between now and Tuesday. This week's Deep Fried Draft Rookie of the Week is San Diego Chargers defensive end Joey Bosa, first-round pick, 3rd overall out of Ohio State, had 5 tackles and 2 sacks. He had a long holdout and ended up dealing with some nagging injuries, started the season late. In the 3 games he's played, he leads the NFL in hurries. So, there you go. Joey Bosa, Rookie of the Week this week for a Deep Fried Draft. That's going to do it for the cheat meal this week. As always, follow me on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Deep Fried Draft. Go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Just look up Deep Fried Draft. My name is Brian Bosarge. Thanks for watching. Good night.